All right, the thing we're going to get into today is collision detection. You're programming a game and you got objects moving around the screen, and it becomes a very advantageous thing to be able to tell, did they run into each other? And we're going to look at one way to do that today, and we're going to practice the idea of if a couple of objects are touching each other, then we can make some things happen. So that's what we're going to work on here in this movie this assignment that you're going to work on today. There's a new block, a new code block that we're going to be using. It says on it, is touching, and you check to see if a sprite is touching a certain target. And in this assignment, in this exercise, you're going to get practice with making that work and seeing what it looks like. So you're going to work on 4 different programs, but you're not going to have to write the whole thing. You're just going to edit these programs. I've sent you an email that has links to them, and the email will look something like what I'm about to show you right here. When you get to your Gmail account and you open up this email that came from me about the is touching programs, you'll see 4 links. And you're going to have to do a little bit of work on each one of those 4 programs. So let's go ahead and do a run through and see how this works. I'm going to look at is touching number 1, and here's a link for that. Now, to begin with, when you first see it, it will look kind of like what you see right here. So you're going to need to click View Code. Up here on the top right-hand side, you'll have to hit View Code. The next thing you're going to have to do is remix it, because you can't edit my code. You're going to have to remix it. The next thing I'm going to ask you to do is rename it. And even if you just take the remix out, or I'm going to call this touching number 1. All right, and save that name. So you're going to have to remix, you're going to have to rename, but here you'll see that most of the code is already done. If I run this program right now, we've got a spaceship that moves over toward a UFO, and that's it. That's all that's happening. All right, so I'm going to hit reset on that. And if you will look over here in the workspace, in the draw function, I put some comments in here that kind of keep you on target about what to do. Use an if block to check whether the ship, that's the moving spaceship, check whether the ship is touching the UFO. The UFO is the object over here on the right-hand side of the screen. If it is, we're going to make the background color change. It's not fancy, but yeah, it'll work. And you can, on all of these programs, I put these comments in to kind of guide you along. Use an if block to check whether the ship is touching the UFO. If it is, change the background color. You can put the if block right below these comments. So I'm going to walk you through it here. All right, I'm going to get an if block and I'm going to pop it right there. The is touching block is located in the sprite drawer, and here it is. And it says sprite dot is touching target. All right, so I'll bring it over and drop it in. And what we're going to do is check to see if the ship is touching the UFO. You have to pay attention to the order that you put things in. Sometimes it's very important. Sometimes it doesn't matter quite as much, but sometimes it is very important. What we want to check here is the ship, the moving spaceship, touching the UFO? Now, I put directions here for you. If it is, what are we going to do? We're just going to change the background color. We're going to keep this one simple. So I'll bring over a background color block. Right now the background is black. Change it to something else. I'll make it red. Always, always, always test your program to see if it works. So I'm going to hit reset and I'm going to hit run, and here it comes. The ship is coming, touches the UFO, changes the background to red. Now you'll notice that once the ship is not touching the UFO, it goes back to black. But this is working. When the ship touches the UFO, the background changes. That's what we're after. So this one is done. So I'm going to go back here to my email. That's where all of this is going to start. It's in this email that I sent you. And I'm going to look at is touching number 2. All right, so I'll click the link for this one. And I'm going to have to click View Code. And I'm going to have to click Remix. And then it's probably a good idea to rename it somehow. All right, so I'll just take out the remix here, and we'll call this. I'll just call it number 2. Save that. All right. Now what we've got right now is that the robot comes over, and there's a robot moving across, and there's a robot just standing there, and it's bot 1 and bot 2. Bot 1 is the one that's moving. Bot 2 is the one that's just standing. So we are going to check to see, and I put this in the comments right here. add an if block to check whether bot 1 is touching bot 2. And if it is, we're going to reverse the velocity x of bot 1. If you'll look at the code, you'll see the velocity x of bot 1 right now is 3. If they touch, we're going to reverse it. Here comes a run through. If, just drop it right below the comment. And it's is touching, that's what we're working on. And it's going to be bot 1 is touching bot 2. Then we're going to use a velocity x. And we want to change bot 1's velocity x. We're going to make it negative. We want it to go back the other way. We're going to reverse the velocity. It was moving to the right. Now we want it to move to the left. Well, that's going to be a negative number. So I'll just do a -5. And we're going to run that. And when it comes across, it touches and it reverses. And I just didn't. I got an error here. And that's good. That's good for that to happen sometimes. I just put bot in the velocity x instead of bot 1. So I have to make sure my labels are working correctly. All right, so it comes across, hits, goes the other way. So if they touch, I reverse the velocity. This one is working, yay. So I'm going to go back to the email, and I'm ready to work on the third one. I will click the link. I will click View Code. I will click Remix. I will click Rename. And I'm just going to call it number 3, and I'll save that. All right, now let's run it. We've got a piece of coal falling toward a beaker. All right, that's where it is right now. In the comment, I said, okay, let's add an if block that will check to see whether the coal is touching the beaker. If it is, let's set the visibility of the coal to 0. All right, go to control. We're going to bring over our if block. The if block can go right below the comments that I put right here. I'm going to go to sprites. Going to bring over the is touching block that we're working with. We want to find out if coal is touching beaker. Beaker is the target, coal is the object that's moving. So we're going to find out if coal is touching beaker. And if it is, we just want to set the coal's visibility to 0. Just make it disappear. We're just going to make it go away. Always check your programs to see if they work. I'm going to hit run. It worked. Look, I'll reset it and run it one more time. The coal falls down. As soon as it touches the beaker, the coal disappears. The whole key to this is touching block. That's what we're working with today. So this one is working. I'm done with it. I can go back to the email. I'm ready for number 4. Here's the link for number 4. I'll click the link. I will click View Code. I will click Remix. I will click Rename. And I'm just going to call this number 4. I'm just going to take out everything except for that 04 up there, and I'll just save that. All right, now on this one, if I run it, we've got an orange monster and an apple. Now all the programming to move the monster is already done, and it uses left, right, up, and down arrows. I'm pressing those arrows right now, left, right, up, down, and you move the monster by pressing the arrows. You can look, if you look at the code, you'll see how it's programmed in there. Now what we want to do is this. We want to make it so when we move the monster around, if we get the monster and move it so that the monster touches the apple, we're going to relocate the apple. And let's make it interesting. And again, I've got this. I did the same thing here that I've done on all the others. I've got comments down here. Let's add an if block that checks to see if the monster is touching the apple. If the monster is touching the apple, then let's reset the apple.x and the apple.y to random locations on the game screen so we don't know where it's going to pop up. So this becomes a monster chases the apple kind of game. There's no scoreboard or anything yet, but we're going to get into that pretty soon. So all right, let's take a look at this. We're going to bring over an if block. This is all if stuff that we're working with today, and it can go right underneath the comments. It's got to be inside the draw loop, but it's going to go right underneath those comments. And I'm going to go to sprites, and I'm going to get the is touching block. And I'm checking to see if the monster is touching the apple. And if it is, we want to relocate the apple. If the monster caught the apple and touched it, we want to relocate the apple, both its x and its y. All right, so I'm going to get a .x, a sprite.x, and a sprite.y. Not a velocity. It's not velocity x and velocity y. It's just a sprite.x and a sprite.y. And that's going to have to be Apple. And the other one's going to have to be Apple. Because that's what I want to relocate. I don't want to relocate the monster. I want to relocate the Apple. And I'm going to relocate them to random numbers. So I'll go to Math. And I'm going to bring over a random number and a random number. And I want to set these random numbers. I'm going to use 0 and 400. And 0 and 400 for my random numbers, because I want it to be like anywhere on the screen, anywhere on the game screen. Now when I reset that and I run it, all right, now I use my arrow keys to control. To test this one, you're going to have to use the arrow keys to control the monster. So I move the monster, and I come up here, and when I get over here and touch the apple, it just reset, right? That's exactly what I wanted. So now I'm going to chase that apple again. I'll use my arrow keys, go over, down. When I touch the apple reset. All right, so again, I'm going to use my arrow keys and touch the apple and see. And this is, again, it turns into kind of like a game. This is the kind of thing where you could collect coins or collect diamonds or something like that in a game. And for every one you collect, you get some points. And we'll get into the whole, like, keeping track of points and having a scoreboard. We'll get into that pretty soon. But right now, I'm just trying to make it so that we're checking this condition. Is the monster touching the apple? Yes. All right. So when it does, it relocates the apple to a new location. All right. So yay. So number 4 is done. And that's it. That's all of them. I did all 4 of those programs. So you've got your example to work from. You got your task in front of you. Hit it, people.